Heavenly Father, we thank you tonight, God. We give you all the glory and we give you all the honor. Father, we thank you for this country and those that have fought and continue to fight and raise the banner for freedom, Father. We invite you, Holy Spirit, in this atmosphere, Father. You said whatever you bind on earth should be bound in heaven, and whatever we loose on earth should be loosed in heaven, God. And we will loose your wisdom and understanding. We bind everything that would be opposite against the will of God for this council meeting and for this time, Father. We thank you for each council member, God. We thank you for our mayor, God, Mayor Tidell, Father. We thank you, God, that your anointing will cover him tonight, God. And we ask that as they leave here, Father, they will know exactly that they made the right decision, Father, that there'll be no regret, Father. We ask you, Father, as it was with Elijah, and he built the altar, Father, and you rained down fire and you licked up the water. We ask you to lick up doubt, lick up insecurity, lick up disrespect, God, lick up racism, Father, anything that's opposite or contrary to your will, to your way, and to your wisdom for Lago Vista and this great city in the state of Texas, Father. And we ask your choice blessings be upon them, God. Let your wisdom rest, rule, remain upon each of these council members and this house, Father. That you are the center, the circumference, the base, the boundary, the sum and the substance of what life's all about. It's all about you. We give you all the glory and we give you all the honor in Jesus' name. And the house said,
Amen. Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right, if you would, please remain standing. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States flag and then the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Now you may be seated. All right, we now proceed into citizen comments. In accordance with the Open Meetings Act, council is prohibited from acting or discussing other than factual response to specific questions, any items not on the agenda. And I have one person signed up, Miss Elaine Hughes. If you would, state your name and address for the audience on television.
Hello, I'm Elaine Hughes. I live at 2802 Douglas Cove. The subject I wanted to bring up tonight was what are known as wayfinder signs. I know you're going into the budget season later this year, and I wanted to remind you that our small businesses have been looking for additional wayfinder signs. We have one at Boggy and Loman, and that's great. It hasn't been updated in a long time, still says Nature's Point to the left. But in that case, someone paid for the sign, I think Vistago produced it, but that the people bought the slot. So hopefully you could somehow put in the budget that we have some more signs up on our busier streets to give our retail places that they could buy in, and maybe it would cost you, we could get the money back, but people want to do advertising here, and we're limited in that way. So I was just wanted to bring to your attention, maybe we could get some of those wayfinder signs in the future. Thank you.
All right, you could make some suggestions on where to put them. All right. Thank you. All right, that's the only one I had signed up. Is there anybody who would like to speak at this time?
I believe I signed up as well.
Oh. Did you fill out one of these, or did you just sign up?
Signed the deal.
Okay. Is it anything that's on the agenda?
It would be in regards to the action items.
Okay, so we'll wait till we get to that action item, and then we'll call you. All right. So for anything not on the agenda, is there anybody who would like to address the council at this time? All right. We will move into items of community interest. Pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.0415, the city council may report on any of the following items: expressions of thanks, gratitude, and condolences, information regarding holiday schedules, recognition of individuals, reminders regarding city council events, reminders regarding community events, or health and safety announcements. And the only thing that I have is budget calendar. we will be going, just a reminder, we will be moving into our budget starting now. Anybody else have anything they would like to share?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to say a big congratulations and thank you to our 4th of July committee. We had a very good turnout for those of you that came out. It was good bands, good fireworks, a lot of very nice times out there. And I think that they deserve a big thank you for the efforts. That's all volunteers. And they did a really nice job.
Yes. Thank you. Anybody else? Josh?
Mayor, I've got an item, if you'll give me a minute. We have a lot of advisory boards and committees that work here in Lago, and that's our way of engaging citizens and council and exchanging ideas. One of our advisory committees has taken it upon themselves to recognize a person that they work with, and I think this is what this item number C is really about, recognition of individuals. The Library Advisory Board continuously works with a lot of people to make sure that we have programs, to make sure we're providing services, to make sure that we're being an avenue in the community to not just what we think in one way to spread literacy and to spread opportunity, but now libraries are just this avenue to what I would say everything. I think members of the library committee here would agree that our libraries are really that way, that we reach into a community and we do so much more. You know, a lot of times we expect our school systems to handle involving community members, and it's just not as effective to think that it's only going to happen through our schools. What our public library here in Lago Vista does is incredible, and you couldn't do it without quality people. So this is really cool because we're going to recognize one of our very own. The Library Advisory Board, getting a lot of volunteers is really cool for libraries because volunteers are extra special. Other people that are extra special happen to be the people that do the work day in and day out. So you don't see this a lot because we don't take a lot of pride in just recognizing the people that we say it's their job to do it. But let me just read this and it'll help you out a little bit. Sorry, I meander.
We do recognize them in December.
That's right. We get that one time, right? So in appreciation for her services to the library and the community, the Library Advisory Board recognizes Jan Steele, our library director, for her dedication and hard work in making the library a place for the community to gather in safe, pleasant surroundings. The Lago Vista Public Library has a well-deserved reputation for its friendly atmosphere and helpful, attentive staff, all under the direction of a dedicated professional who works very hard to see that it all happens as planned. You know, the cool thing is, we talk about this, communities are only as good as the people that live there and the people that do the work. And Jan is the epitome of the person that does the work. It doesn't matter the time of day, it doesn't matter the topic, whether it's having crazy creatures come and play in the library, or if it's reading to 3-year-olds, or if it's making sure that someone can get a new Stephen King novel. The myriad of services is covered in our library. I say this often, that you judge a community based on the services that we provide, and one easy service to determine how good the community is through the library. It's one of the reasons why when we get into this budget session, we're going to request of the community and of the council to expand our library, because for some reason Jan thinks that we need to do more. I don't know why she would think that. I feel like you're doing enough, but it's really cool for Sharon as the chairman to bring this as a committee to say they really want to appreciate Jan for the work that she's doing. So we're going to ask the mayor and Jan to go out there so we can take a picture, and just for the rest of us to appreciate Jan Steele.
I was led here under false pretenses.
No. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Hang on. 1, 2, 3.
Okay. We got one more over here.
Thank you so much. I'm kind of speechless right now, but actually, I just want to thank everybody for this opportunity. This has been probably the best thing I've ever done in my life, the most fun. I love being a librarian. I love being part of the city, part of this growing community. And I love you all, and it's my honor a privilege to be here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jan. Mayor, I told Jan that I was going to mention to the council about a potential library expansion, and I think I did that. So it wasn't really false pretense, and I just asked her to be here to support me if I had any questions, and I don't have any questions of Jan, so if you're good with that.
I was ready to support you.
I figured you. That's probably 2 hours of wasted time today on actual facts, but I did what I was told to do.
There you go.
Thank
And how do
you.
we follow that up now?
We do work, and that's, I stop talking and you talk. That's the
Okay.
beauty of it.
So now we are going into presentations. And number 3, Scenic City Update and Celebration.
Mayor, I want to say that typically I'm not the person that does the agendas. And so Sandra does all of our agendas all the time, but I made a request that she add the idea there of a celebration because my thought is Councilor Davila has something of importance to say. And I mean, if we got a bowl of chocolate up here, there's something to celebrate. So this is just an exciting thing.
Here's a bowl of chocolate.
I just,
Is that why it's here?
Yes.
All right, good deal. I'll tell you what, I want to begin by saying I'm going to step out of character here because I know that when we have these council meetings, you usually see a very serious person behind this tie. Today, I'm going to do something a little bit different. About this time last year, I attended a conference in Fredericksburg that was actually sponsored by our legal team that presented ideas about scenic cities. And so I got very excited about the idea of going forward with the idea of getting our city branded as a scenic city. One of the first things that was mentioned in the conference was that scenic cities is not about a beauty contest. We all know that our city is a beautiful city, but it was really about ordinances that actually keep the city beautiful and our ability to have these ordinances and be able to support them. And so when I came back to council, I mentioned to the mayor that I was going to come down this road and try to get us to the point where we can be recognized as a scenic city. And I knew that the application was going to be a long and arduous thing to go through, and so we went through that. I was able to convince Frank Robbins and Dick Weatherly to help me put together this whole package of what went into 12 sections of the application. And then we had Roy Jambor, who actually looked over our work and kind of blessed what we were doing. So in the end, about a month and a half ago, we submitted our application, and then we're quickly told that it'd be about another month or so before we would get the actual results because so many cities had actually applied to become a scenic city. So it gives me great pleasure to say that we have been recognized as a scenic city. There are certain levels of recognition, beginning with just plain recognition, and then it goes up according to colors of precious metals. The person being bronze, and then it goes to silver, and then to gold, and then the ultimate is platinum. Well, we didn't get to platinum, but I'm happy to say that we did achieve gold status. So I'm very happy about that. And so one final thing, I think that in the near future, you're going to be seeing signage around the city that's going to look something like this, that shows that we have this gold status. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And I would like to add onto this with Arch, the work he's done with Scenic City, Dark Skies, the work that staff has done on both of these. our volunteer group, Keep Lago Vista Beautiful. Whether it's a beauty contest or not, Lago Vista will be a beautiful city. Thank y'all. Right. Number 4, Comprehensive Master Plan Subcommittee Report. And the lead on that one
That's me.
It's Frank.
is Frank.
The comprehensive plan calls for an annual review of our 2016 comprehensive plan. It's been a while since we've had a report at the council level on the comp plan, so Dave Williams and I put together a subcommittee which consisted of myself, Dave Williams, Councilman Davila, Roy Jambor, City Manager Josh Ray, Tom Monahan from the Planning and Zoning Commission, and Jacob Lance from the Building and Standards Commission. We started focusing on the section of the plan that calls for how to implement the plan and lists a number of items from the basic body of the plan of what you're supposed to do, year 1, year 2, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you see an example of that up on the screen. There's 2 ways I could do this. Go through 15 pages of this or simply summarize that the actions that this city has taken to implement the comprehensive master plan since we adopted it in 2016 is impressive. I've worked for a lot of cities, and this is going through this exercise, and this is one city that really has used the comp plan. So we have a report of all of the actions listed in Section 8, and that's what you see on the screen that shows what we've done, where it is in the basic part of the plan, and the body of the plan, and what we've done. You will find in some of these sections that some additional study is required. In addition to going through, particularly with the city manager and Roy's help on our accomplishments to implement the plan, we found that there are a number of issues that need some additional study. A couple of examples I'll give you. The plan actually calls for demolition of City Hall, and that we should acquire most of the property south of the airport as a green belt. And there are a number of those relatively large issues that we think we need to look into in some more detail, really outside of the scope of what the subcommittee could do. So the subcommittee is asking the council to take action on 2 points. One, to simply accept the report, and we could talk about that or have additional questions either now or later. And the second recommendation from the subcommittee is to appoint a major update committee in the November, December timeframe and to look at the entire plan and a potential major update. Now, Mayor, this is not an action tonight, so we can't act on it, but at some future point, we may want to actually act on it. One of the easy ways to do it, if there are not a lot of questions or major concerns, it could be on the consent agenda at the next meeting.
Okay.
So I'll be pleased to answer any questions you have, and there are a number of other members that are here tonight.
One other thing that, when we were going through doing this, we tried to link the action items that go with the objective. And that's why you see on the page, you see page numbers, so that you can go to those pages to see that those pages relate to the objective that is over here, because it wasn't linked and we had to find it. So we tried to make it so that you could see what the action item is, the measure, and then what pages are involved in that process. So it was great working with the team that worked on this, and I think we did a great job at trying to put it together as an organized report.
I have a question on your major committee. Are you speaking like a comprehensive master plan review committee that involves the citizens and everything? Or are you talking about another subcommittee of?
No, well, the recommendation is that the council appoint a committee to formally go into a major update of the plan, a detailed review, it would take months. Now, how we would go about that remains to be seen. I assume that's a council call or a call of the committee that the council would appoint. And it could certainly involve any number of different ways to involve the community.
The reason I was asking, because I know when we actually do the formal review of the plan, that's we hired an outside company to come in and do town halls and all. That's not, when
No.
you say, you're not looking for that, right?
No.
You're just,
No,
okay.
no. That will play out as,
Head shines
yeah.
now, Sandra. Okay, I just want to make sure. Did you hear that, Sandra? My head shines now.
One of the nice things that Josh talked about was getting all the volunteers that we have that participate. And so it'd be always nice to get more people in the community to help out and participate in that and supply input and go from there.
I agree. I agree, especially since this council has been very proactive in pushing the comprehensive master plan. There's a lot more civilians and citizens that actually are aware of our comprehensive master plan now, and I have no doubt they would like to be involved. All right. Is there any questions from the audience on this topic? All right, anything else? Council?
No, sir.
All right, we will move into our public hearings. Public hearing and possible action. This is first consideration. The Lago Vista City Council is holding a public hearing to consider ordinance number 19-07-18-01, an ordinance of the City Council of Lago Vista, Texas, amending the official zoning map by changing the zoning district of approximately 0.648 acres of Tract 97, Travis Hollow, Section 3, located at 20303 Alfalfa Drive, from PDD, Planned Development District, to LI, Light Industrial. And I will open the public hearing at 6:54 PM.
Both the zoning applications that are on your agenda for first discussion are very similar. Normally, you would have seen these come in as pieces of property that were remaining as TR1, the temporary district designation, which in Lago Vista is occasionally a little longer than temporary, but nonetheless, it often exists until somebody asks for a piece of property. If it's non-conforming or already used, they don't always ask immediately, and the staff doesn't necessarily or did not in the past proactively go out and have these properties, rezoned at that time. This would normally be one of those examples, except it was accidentally included in the legal description of a PDD that we all know as the Hollows. And as a result, it was part of the Hollows. What happened, and you should have in your packet copies of the maps, you'll see that it's not in their concept plan, but that their legal description is just a long list of a bunch of plat numbers. And nobody bothered to very carefully figure out what was going on and, locate those and say, oops, a couple of these are outside of that concept plan and shouldn't be in here. Anyway, the current property owner, who was the property owner at the time, now is starting to, for example, one of the pieces of property, this one, he has a buyer for, and that buyer wants to make improvements. And as a non-conforming, he can't make any of those improvements until this is corrected. So that's what's motivating this particular application. He doesn't object, has no problems. The strange thing is if he would have been correctly notified as an adjacent property owner, he would have known this was going on, but because they thought he was a property owner that was part of the application, he didn't even receive a notice when it was originally rezoned, which is kind of humorous, but it happened. So anyway, he has no real problem. He was going to have to file this application eventually anyway. So he's now here to correct it. So in this case, to hopefully, complete a sale. The one that's across the street, he just wants to make improvements on so he can use it for its original intended purpose.
This did come to planning and zoning, and planning and zoning
Yes,
gave
sir.
its blessing also.
Strangely enough, it was on the same agenda with the Hollows,
Yeah.
wanting an update, which was kind of curious. We reminded that the current developers of the Hollows that, they need to be real careful about how they buffer this between their adjacent piece of property, not this one, but the one across the street in particular. And they're aware of that. It's a much bigger piece of property. This one's kind of tiny, but not a big problem. The other one, that people need to watch what they're doing, so to speak.
And this is in line with the future land use and the surrounding.
Absolutely, and it's consistent with the way it was used when it was annexed and still currently used. About the only thing that's a little unusual is that there's a manufactured home on the property that the gentleman that owns it used as his office. We don't know exactly how he's going to use it, but our understanding, that wouldn't be questionable. But our understanding is the future owner intends to remove it anyway, so we won't have to deal with that permitting issue about whether it meets commercial building codes or not.
Thank you. Question from council?
No.
Can we take action on this?
Yes.
First reading.
Well,
This is public hearing and possible action.
we're kind of preparing them either way, but this is the first time. And the way we noted on the agenda parenthetically, first consideration is the way we'll identify that. If you defer it and keep the public hearing open, we'll just change the ordinance number for next month and be through.
So this
Yeah,
one, Aaron, this one only requires the one hearing?
Yeah, only one is required, but if it's your common practice to hear all of the items twice, I would encourage you to follow your common practice unless there's an extenuating circumstance as to why not.
well,
Good, Frank.
Mayor, I would, for the slam dunk zoning cases, I would sure like to get it done in one time. Saves everybody a lot of time and effort to include ours. So I would move to approve.
We can't do
We
We're
that.
can't
sti-
move
I'm
yet,
sorry.
Can't move yet.
Can't do that yet.
But I would like to get rid of it tonight, because the next two, and
They're as slam dunk as you can
Yeah.
get.
They are very much slam dunk.
And just
Just
to make sure I have no
one
more questions from
The audience.
All right?
Okay.
It is a public hearing, so the floor is open to the audience to comment on this.
Mr. Mayor, we're going to open that public hearing at,
I already did. It was at 6:54. All right, well, if I have none, then I will close the public hearing at 7 PM. And now we're available for council discussion or decision.
Now,
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. In fact, I will make a motion that we approve ordinance number 19-07-18-01.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries unanimous. And now we'll go into number 6. The Lago Vista City Council is holding a public hearing to consider ordinance number 19-07-18-02. An ordinance of the City Council of Lago Vista, Texas, amending the official zoning map by changing the zoning district of Tract 51, Travis Hollow, Section 3, located at 20204 Mean Trail, from PDD, Planned Development District, to Light Industrial, LI. And I will open the public hearing at 7:01 PM.
The only thing I would add to my previous comments is this is a much larger tract of land without a lot of concentrated use. I'm particularly excited that he's going to get this rezoned and considering investing money in it, because it's an opportunity to get some of our open storage out of inappropriate locations and onto this piece of property. I've already sent him a couple of prospective tenants that'll hopefully move, once this is approved. That's as far as I go. I give out his name and number and say, hey, call him and get your junk off this site. Put it here.
Good. All right, questions from council? No? All right, anybody from the audience that would like to ask a question or comment? All right, hearing none, I will close the public hearing at 7:02 PM. And we're open for discussion or decision.
Mayor, I'd like
Yes.
to make a motion. I move that we approve, that City Council approves ordinance number 19-07-18-02.
Second.
All right, I have a motion from Art and a second from Dave. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries unanimous. Action items. Number 7. Let me go to my screen here. Open up number 7. All right, item number 7, discussion and possible action concerning a professional services agreement with Retail Strategies and authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement. This is brought to us by Eric. Eric, would you like to?
Mayor, I was going to give you a lead in first, if you don't
Okay,
mind.
sure. I was going to get him to do the lead in.
Steal my thunder. I'm still holding the clicker.
Sorry.
I'm not using it, but I'm holding it.
You never want to steal his thunder.
I know, it's got some words to say here. So Mayor, thanks. The reason I wanted to lead in is last year, the city of Lago Vista jumped into a new venture, and that is having in-house economic development activities that we handle. So we're trying to promote the economic development of our region. In doing so, the council approved the hiring of an economic development director, and we were able to welcome Eric Zeno, which has been already a fantastic addition to our team. Eric has worked with the Economic Development Committee to start determining what are best practices and strategies for us to maximize the benefit of creating an economic development department. One of those possibilities and strategies is bringing in a partner that would work on commercial and retail development. Part of that is Eric Zeno is effectively he's a one-man department, and he can handle his own. He can do that very well, but just like the rest of us, working as a one-person department, you're limited in your ability to cover a vast area of a region to try and be successful. So one of the things that Zeno's working for is bringing in people such as Retail Strategies to partner with him to expand his reach and to provide a greater opportunity for our community to access some of those businesses, to access different data opportunities, and then to potentially strengthen our system, because as we see rooftops, traffic, and population increase, what our challenge is, you don't want to miss those opportunities, and that's really where we're at right now. So what we want to say is, before Eric or before Lacey gets into the presentation, is for a community, we want people to start looking at, if we're effectively going to move into a world of economic development, we have to go at it 100%. And we can't just give it half effort. We don't want to do anything half effort. As we said earlier with another department, we want to be active, we want to be aggressive, and we want to present these opportunities to the city council so that you can fully hear some opportunities that can make us better. So that's all I've got, Mayor, and I give it to Zeno.
Yes, Mayor, Council, we had several retail groups that we looked at. I called a couple other cities that these groups that have been a part of those communities. Retail Strategies group comes highly recommended. Lacey Beasley, with the president of Retail Strategies, here for a presentation, and I'm sure she would answer any questions if you have after that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Mayor, Manager, Council. Appreciate you having me here this evening. Thank you so much. I'm here to talk about some solutions that are in line with your long-term economic development initiatives. And we're really excited to be here to just share how we can potentially partner up to help you reach those goals. Lago Vista is like several other communities in that you understand the importance in retail. It's sales tax, it's property tax, it's jobs, and primarily it's quality of life. The challenges come into play whenever it comes to the time allocation, the resources, the connections, and really just the experience. And that's where we come into play and help surround your community with those things. Our firm has an extensive background in this space, and that's what we're here to talk about. I'm going to give you a high-level overview of what we do here at Retail Strategies when we partner with communities, and then be happy to answer any questions that you might have. So when we talk about the resources that are available to you, we spend six figures a year in data, research, and GIS, and I'm going to hit on some of those things that we do for you. It's about time allocation. We highly focus on just retail, restaurant, and hotel. That's the space that our team focuses and lives and breathes all day, every day. We have about 80% of our staff are licensed real estate agents, so they have a lot of experience in this space, and we have a very concerted effort in working with you as the local. You have the local message, we have the national retail message, and we want to put those together and get that exposed out to the rest of the country. So let's go ahead and hit on what our process is. We first start with market analysis, doing all the research. Then we do strategic planning. It's looking at all the properties that you have here, looking at the businesses that we believe are good fits for you. And then it's the proactive outreach that we do. And we reach out to the property owners, the brokers, the developers, the retailers on your behalf. And ultimately, this is not just a study that sits on a shelf. It's a living, breathing process that we work through together. As the marketplace responds to us, we adapt to that. So I'm going to walk through that four-step process with you. First is discovery. We have an internal database of 9,700 different retailers with their contact information, their site selection criteria. So it's not just the demographics, it's also the real estate. So we narrow those down for the good prospects that work with you. When we do our initial research, we run it on radius rings, drive times, and a customized trade area with a lot of different data points that come together. So when we provide that to you, there's over 23,000 different variables in there. But this isn't just about a data dump. It's about taking that information and pulling out the elements of it that most matter to you so that we can market you to the prospects that we want to recruit to the area. So when we do that demographic overview, we run all that initial data. And then one piece that we have that's extremely unique and I think will really come into play here is our mobile tracking data. So it's a little bit creepy, but it exists and we buy it. If your location services are on your phone, then we can track that information. We can track consumer shopping patterns. And that's how we develop that customized trade area. So it goes beyond the municipal boundaries. And obviously with your geography here, this is going to be a very important component to back the data into the story of who is your potential customer, and then telling that to the retailer so they can look at what their potential sales might be. We look at lifestyle segmentations, basically what is the personality of the area beyond just the population number. We look at a retail gap analysis. It is the goods and services where people are leaving the community to buy those, and how do we identify those and come up with our top categories that we want to focus on to plug those gaps of retail leakage and keep people shopping locally. And then we look at a peer analysis. It's looking at other communities of similar size and makeup, looking at the retailers they have that you don't, and then adding them to the prospect list and making the case for you in that nature. Here's a quote from one of the communities we work with, Zion, Illinois, and Sausalito's talking about, she's been working with us for about 2.5 years. They have 2 new retailers and a third one on the way, and they have a new level of exposure that they never had prior to working with Retail Strategies. I ran on a high level your demographic highlight. Most retailers look within radius rings and drive times. And a few things I wanted to point out here that I think are quite staggering is your population growth number. I do this all day, every day. That's the highest number I've ever seen. You have a very strong population growth number. When you look at the retailers that are looking to invest here 10, 20 years, they want to know that that is sustainable long term. So we want to highlight that. We want to highlight your income and your housing values that are all very positive. So where the rooftop count still has potential to grow, these are the things that we would want to focus on for you, where you trend far above the nation, the state, and you're trending very high for Austin as well. So that's what we would do in highlighting those numbers. When I looked at your retail gap analysis, this is when within a 15-minute drive time, you can see that there is a leakage in all categories. So that proves that there's a lot of capacity to fill that gap and that void with new businesses. We put all this information together in a marketing flyer for you. This on the interior is an aerial map with the retailers on the rooftops and the traffic counts. The exterior has a demographic overview, and we developed this over years of experience of knowing what matters most to the retailers and the developers when they're analyzing a community. This is a case study in Cookeville, Tennessee, where the city has about 30,000 people. Through our mobile tracking data, we were able to prove a trade area of 200,000, and over about a 5.5-year process, a public-private partnership, a wetland mitigation, a lot of challenges. Ultimately, they have a new shopping center that's 220,000 square feet that's anchored by Academy Sports and a grocery store, and that municipality now collects a new annual tax collection of $2.5 million. So obviously a very positive ROI, and a quote from the developer saying how Retail Strategies was a great partner in helping this project come to fruition. So our next phase is the boots on the ground, where we come in and we have licensed real estate professionals look at all the properties that we believe are viable for commercial development. Now, this is our team coming in and looking whether they're listed or not. So if you go to LoopNet, which is the commercial real estate listing for all the properties, there's only about 5 properties listed for Lago Vista. What we typically do is a much more extensive list that we keep in our internal software. You can see here Orange County, just as an example, where we plot every property that we think makes sense. Now, this might be raw land, good for new development, might be highest and best use, like your Lago Vista Village. It might be new construction. It might be filling up vacant space that already exists, like your town center has some vacant space. So we'd work with any aspect of that, work with the property owners and the developers, determine what their goals are and how we can use our resources to help them on their projects. Here's a quote in Moline, Illinois, from the city planner saying how Retail Strategies demographics really help market the properties, but also a quote from the local broker saying how Retail Strategies gave him exposure far beyond what he had in his own network. And you can see here that they've added about 300 new jobs during the course of our engagement through the retail businesses that we brought. This picture is a little fuzzy and hard to see, but I wanted to show from that regional perspective where geographically you have boundaries with the water, with the hills. There's a lot going on here where I think it's critically important for us to get out ahead of that message because it's a complicated market. And what we found is that retailers, developers, brokers, they like easy markets, right? So our goal here is to make this easy for them to understand by putting that package together for you when we're marketing them. So digging in a little bit closer, as I mentioned, the Lago Vista Village, that definitely is going to be a major priority of ours, working with the owner and the broker there to see what we can do on a master plan for that development. And then your town center as well. I think that's really your largest retail node of national tenants currently. So let's look at what their plans are and how we can help them recruit businesses in. Is that public, the new business that's coming in there?
Starbucks.
Yes, okay, good. All right. I'm always very sensitive to anything that might be confidential. So congratulations on the new Starbucks that's coming in there. And we want to keep working with additional prospects that are in line that can help generate additional tax revenue here. So here's a quote from El Campo, and I think this is important when we're looking at, as Josh, you properly identified earlier, Eric being one-man show for the economic development. And this is Carolyn Gibson talking about how partnering with Retail Strategies has really just been an extension of her staff and helped her in a way that she couldn't do on her own. And we are there as a highly customized company that we work with you on whatever your needs are. So all this research and demographics, for any of your economic development needs, we have real-time analytics that we can run on your behalf. And you can see several wins that we've had here in El Campo about 100 new jobs, and they have 120,000 annually in new sales tax that's come back to them. This is our timeline as we go through it. So really the first 90 days are running the demographics, putting together all of the properties, and then developing the plan to you. We deliver that plan to you, and then we develop your retail website, and we start with that proactive recruitment. We do come back with a reporting on the outreach efforts and the responses that we received from that. So we have ongoing reporting throughout the course of our engagement, and we have conference representation, which I'll talk more about in a minute. This is a sampling of what we do for our outreach. We do phone calls, emails, and conferences. We have a team of people that is constantly reaching out to people. And we get a lot of no's, but that's what we're here for. We do a lot of outreach, and we follow up quarterly just to remain top of mind for these prospects and make sure that they are aware of the opportunities that are existing here. A few additional examples where we've had a positive ROI in several communities we've worked with. I'll skip forward and show you what our team. We have about 30 people. We have 13 people specifically involved here with Lago Vista and the efforts that we have. Top center is Chris Bontrager. He'll be your portfolio director, the main point of contact working with you throughout the course of our engagement, but he's supported by our entire team. What I think is so positive about knowing that we have a large team like this is just to know that, one, you get the benefits of deploying all those resources with additional team members, but if there's any changes among our team, nothing falls through the cracks, that we're all there very well aware of our efforts that we're doing here, and it's a quick turnaround, and it's highly focused time and attention that we spend on you. And what really sets us apart, I realize that you've worked with other firms on retail recruitment efforts in the past. What really sets us apart is our team. We maintain a 5-to-1 client to staff ratio, and we really focus on the research and the real estate. It's the combination of the two. Previous firm that you worked with, they do a great job on their research, but we take that a step further and really look at the real estate, because that's a critical component to have the wins, and it's highly customized for smaller communities with more challenges. So they have a great platform for large communities and large staffs, and ours is more for the communities that need that highly customized, heavy HR intensive focus. So that's where our difference lies. A little bit about what we put together for you. The marketing flyer hit on the retail website. So this is something that we would cross-reference with your website, all the materials on there, so that anytime a developer or broker can find what they need on you, this is just another tool to help promote you. And then conference representation. Here, representing you locally, and I know that Eric's attended several of these. International Council of Shopping Centers is the largest trade organization. They have a show in Fort Worth every year. That's the Texas show. There's the Retail Live show that will be coming up here in August. We also have Recon, which is a large show in Las Vegas. But our team also goes to New York, Orlando, Chicago, LA. We're attending these all over the country. And what I think is so positive about that is getting that national network to you. Developers love Texas. And when we meet with them in Orlando or New York, they say, who are you working with in Texas? Because it's a business-friendly state. We want to know what the opportunities are there. So I think it's a very positive way to extend your outreach beyond just this state. As I mentioned previously, we're your ongoing support system with research and reporting. A few other just examples and case studies. We worked with Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. They said, we want something that can work for the tourism here. So we were able to recruit a Topgolf in there. In Augusta, Georgia, they said, we really want a concerted effort to our downtown revitalization. And after about 7 years, then we have a large mixed-use development that's coming in. You see a quote from Margaret Woodard at the bottom that just says, retail strategies really outshone all the competition in that. And this is Dubuque, Iowa. They have about $500,000 annually in new property tax revenue that's generated off of the projects we've worked with them on. And we've been working with them for about 7 years. So this is a long-term engagement. And when we're working with you, we plant a lot of seeds in year one. We put a lot of effort there. But what we want to do is be your long-term partner as an extension of your staff and economic development. This is very much a partnership. This isn't just about what we provide you. It's about what we build together. And I think that's critically important that we enter this understanding that it is very much a partnership. We all have the same goals at the end of the day to bring new retail here. And you have to ask yourself, are you better off with us than you are without us? And I would say that answer hopefully is a resounding yes. Are there any questions I can answer?
Yes. Two questions. The first question is, on the marketing guide, is this something that our Economic Development Committee can utilize? And
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
second question, when you get to the yes, I've been
Yes,
very
sir.
much a corporate person, so I understand your process,
Yes, sir.
your strategies, your objectives. But when you get to the yes, you've already broken through the gatekeepers and all those people in that organization. For example, Chick-fil-A.
Mm-hmm.
You get to Chick-fil-A, you've been through the gatekeepers, you get to the economic buyer. And you come to us and say, they're interested in Lago Vista. Do you also give us the background on that person?
Yes.
And allow us to be able to utilize your knowledge of that person so that we make the right presentation?
We keep you posted all throughout the entire process.
Okay.
So from the initial outreach effort, we let you know every time we reached out to them, whether it's the difficulty with the franchisee, with the site, whether they need a preferred developer, whether it's the broker holding it up. So there's several different people that are involved in the process. So we can keep that constant dialogue going throughout the process. And then when it does come to fruition, it's our collective win that we want to share.
I have one quick question. What city are you working with now that is basically the same size as Lago Vista physically? Because I think our square mileage area is something like 12.8 square miles. So, to compare cities and the possibility of being successful here, I'd like to know that you're working with somebody that you can point to and say, yeah, this city is the same size as your city in terms of the size. So
Yeah, what I think is important to look at is what your trade area might be. So we look at population, so you're around 6,000 as municipal population. Within a 15-minute drive time, you're around 24,000. So we work with several communities that have that 24,000 population within that 15-minute drive time. And then we haven't analyzed your customized trade area yet, but that's a part of our peer analysis is looking at that. So El Campo has a very similar population as you. We work with Lovington, New Mexico, Artesia, New Mexico. So they have similar type populations as well.
as a young man, I remember going through and living temporarily in El Campo. I thought it was quite a bit bigger than Lago Vista.
The municipal population is around 12,000, but the drive time is closer, which is how we really analyze things. Yes,
Gotcha.
sir. Thank you.
I'm familiar with Artesia, and if you can do miracles for them.
A lot of the expansion we're seeing right now is among the restaurant category.
I noticed that the list of businesses you guys have referenced here, it's all big kind of national retailers, and Austin's a very trendy city, and a lot of things that work everywhere else don't work here. And I'm like Torchy's Tacos and things like that we have local. Have you built any relationships with? Because they already have a following, and if people can come out here and visit one of their restaurants.
Yes, sir. We do. We do see that with the restaurant groups, and we're also working with Leander and building a lot of relationships there. So yes, and anyone that attends the conferences, but we definitely understand that highly customized, unique kind of outreach, and I think that is going to be a big part of our efforts here. Good news is if we don't currently know it, we will find it. We will build that relationship. That's a part of our process and our larger team.
So I think I am the only one sitting up here that was here when we had contract with the last group.
Okay.
And we
Great.
had some problems with them, not because of them per se, but because of our city is very unique.
Yes, sir.
So I have several questions.
Okay.
During your discovery and your outreach, who do you reach out to in this city other than staff and council?
So in the outreach, the property owners and the brokers, to help us understand who owns the property, what are their goals for their property, and then we can take that and apply it to the outreach efforts we have with the developers or the brokers or the retailers.
Okay, what about the citizens? I know you do a demographic study, but do you reach out to them at all?
That's a great question. We have, if you so choose to exercise it, a crowdsourcing survey where it's a Facebook survey that goes out to the community. They guarantee 1,000 responses, and it asks for the top brands that they want to see here locally, and it gives us the top 15. So that is something we can add if you'd like.
So this piggybacks on their two questions. You heard us mention earlier a comprehensive master plan committee.
sir.
So that comprehensive master plan already has a lot of things in it that people asked for. Obviously, it was 3 years ago, but my experience is people don't want chains. They want some, but for the most part, they do not. They want the more unique places like we have in Austin, or they want the Bluebonnet Cafe like we have in Marble Falls. They want mom and pop in our
Okay.
community. They don't necessarily want retail giants that are all over the nation.
Okay.
So what experience do you have bringing in these unique mom and pops and because I'm going to throw something else out here at you. You mentioned Lago Vista Village, you mentioned Town Center. We're also looking at, hopefully in this area here, within the next decade or so, turning this into a town square.
Great.
And so we're
Excellent.
looking for things that mixed use and stuff in this area as well. But we're not necessarily looking for the chains. You know, this community was a destination bedroom resort community when it started. It is still pretty much a bedroom community. We would kind of like to take advantage of it in the future as a, not only bedroom, but as a destination for people to come out and enjoy the lake and golf and our airport and things like that. So I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I'm happy to share on that. What we do with some communities that say we just want the local restaurant chains, for instance, is we ask them to give us a list of who they want us to reach out to, and we also use Yelp in all the surrounding areas because you can see the top chains that are in those surrounding areas, and reach out to the owners of those businesses. I'll tell you that it's a much more difficult path, and I understand that it's much more desired. But if you look at a Dunkin' Donuts, for instance, they're going to do 200 new locations every single year with a model versus a mom and pop that might do one restaurant in their lifetime. So it's really about the frequency and the path to the win, create the win. But we're here to work for you. If you say we don't want any national chains, we just want locals. If you understand the challenge that comes with that, we're happy to reach out to them on your behalf. I think at the end of the year, if we are judged only on the number of new businesses, then I would just say that's going to be a much harder path to achieve if it's just the locals. But we're here to work for you. So you guide us in that
We
space.
work for these people.
Mm-hmm.
So like I say, the comprehensive master plan and the social media, when people put things, what do you want to see out there on social media?
Yeah.
You know, that's what we have to answer
Great.
to. And yes, we definitely want growth for certain reasons. Most of it financial, obviously.
Right.
But we also have to make sure we're bringing in what these people want. And if they don't
Right.
necessarily want, so the amount of growth may not necessarily be as important as the quality
Okay.
of what we bring in.
Right. Because I don't think you want to cut out all national chains.
I'll take a Chick-fil-A.
Because a lot of the times I hear from people in the community that they would love to have a Dairy Queen here in Lago Vista, okay? So it really depends on what chains you're talking about.
Okay.
And,
And we will share our prospect list
Yeah.
with you that we come up of nationals. And
Right.
if you want to add any locals to us or tell us that that's a part of your goals, just let us know.
Yeah.
We're happy to work on it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're here to be your partner in that space. So whatever you
I do
think.
like you have hotel. We don't
Yes.
have a hotel.
Yes, hotel. Yes.
So, and you mentioned the drive time
Mhm.
radius that you look at. With these retail restaurants, we have no workforce. how do we overcome that? I mean, yes, we have growth, but most of them are young professional families and retired. We don't have a very large workforce for these types of businesses. You say 15 minutes down the road is Cedar Park. My experience is they don't come this way to work. They go into Austin or they go Round Rock or,
Yeah.
so,
So if and maybe I can go back to that chart where I have the stats here. So you're right, during the day, it does drop, the population drops slightly, but what we do when we run our full analysis is not just at labor force, but we're looking at a true daytime population, which encompasses retirees, stay-at-home, students, it's the whole population. So you can see, let's see if that laser's not gonna work. You see total number of employees, second to last, and then you see daytime population there. And there is a slight dip in that, but not nearly as substantial as the number of employees. I do think if people are leaving to work, that still leaves opportunity for breakfast business on the way out of town for the restaurants. Breakfast is the most profitable of all the meals. So the restaurants love to see people are coming out. Grocery stores want to capture people on their way home. So from where they work to where they're going to their house is important for them. So that commute is still causing traffic going back and forth for all those brands that aren't solely depending on a lunch crowd to make their living.
retail, leisure and entertainment. How much experience do you have working with those type of businesses?
You know, entertainment is really something that's growing quite a bit now. I think that every brand out there in every category is trying to determine how they combat their cut into profit based on e-commerce, right? So it's a lot about this omni-channeling, it's e-commerce and brick and mortar and bringing that together. But entertainment's huge right now because it's also something that really drives the millennials. So we're seeing entertainment concepts take second generation space, which fortunately you have. You have at the Lago Vista Village. So yeah, we're watching those expanding brands and growing. What I think they have a really unique model with the type of real estate that they need. And the reason they need second generation is typically it's less expensive to build. That new construction is a bit of a challenge, and the return on entertainment typically isn't as high as soft goods.
Because I mentioned earlier, we're bedroom, but we're also destination because of the lake and our
Right.
golf courses and the whole country. The motorcyclists like to come right out here. We have our own airport.
Right.
So we're a bit of a destination, so we
Yeah.
definitely want to take advantage of that. But we have very little for our residents to actually do for leisure and entertainment. They have, unless they're playing golf or going to the lake, they have.
Those
to
aren't
go
too
and-
bad.
Well, that's true.
You know, that's a library.
And we have.
And
a
the
wonderful
library.
Yes, so we really don't have for our kids, our teenagers, we don't have things.
Like a
that for
bowling
them.
alley or anything
Yeah,
like that,
what-
a skating rink.
Mhm.
anything.
And what we find on those is a lot of times they're going to look for an incentive from the city to make the numbers work for them. So when we cross that bridge, that would be something to consider.
Got it.
Okay. I think that's all I have at the
Okay.
moment.
Thank you for your questions.
Anybody else? All right, do you mind if I open this up to the citizens?
No, that's absolutely fine.
I don't know if you're
Yeah,
familiar in
absolutely.
Texas, but
And these-
our state just passed a new law where I cannot prevent people from asking questions during city council meetings.
Okay.
So, it doesn't really take effect till 1 September, but
Thank you, thank you.
Might as well get used to it.
yeah, I never really stop them anyway.
Get in
but
front of the curve.
If there's anybody in the audience who would like to ask Lacey some questions, now is your chance. No?
Yes. Eric reminded me to mention the Retail Academy. That is something that we've incorporated into our engagement with you. So once we put the plan together, we will come here and spend 6 hours with your team educating you on the whole process of real estate, all the research that we came up with, and really engaging. I shouldn't have used the term educating. I should say partnering and talking about what your needs are versus the research that we came up with, and just really spending that one-on-one focus with you.
And
So
I'm
that-
also aware of your webinars that you.
Yes.
Get those
Yeah,
emails.
it's a dynamic, I'd say retail is the fastest changing and most dynamic of all the commercial real estate categories, because these are publicly traded companies and they're making investors happy on their quarterly reports. So it's constantly changing. And then what I sit here and say today might be completely different in 12 months, but that's part of our goal, is to always stay on top of those changes. The webinars help me and our team. Mhm.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So this is obviously this is the first time we have heard this. We've met Lacey and had her presentation tonight. But it is an action item. It's up for possible action.
Mr. Mayor, the monies that are put aside for this have been put into the Economic Development Department from the start. So it's not looking for additional monies from anywhere else to pay for this. It was part of their budget. In working with the Economic Development team, I also, one of the big things for me was the interaction between this group and our Economic Development Manager. I wanted to make sure that they were going to be working as a team together and that he would have input into helping this whole thing develop, and you would educate him on the people that you meet. I'd like to see this move forward, so I don't know if I have to
So
make a motion or whether.
So yes, just to clarify, you did you did state that the money is already allocated. This is not something that we would be pulling out of the general funds or anything. It is something that was already budgeted in the economic development budget, so
Right.
that is true.
Yeah.
Lacey, you mentioned you were working with Leander. I know that someone has come from Leander. Have y'all worked together before?
I was on the way out when Mason was actually going there with me.
Okay, so y'all have not previously?
Not the director, but there's one of the director working with them, and not the also manager.
Okay. Well, like I say, it's up for possible action. We can either take action or we can put it on the agenda for a later time. It's up to y'all.
Mayor, I'd like to move we approve the professional services agreement with Retail Strategies and authorize city manager to execute the agreement.
I make a second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Eric and Lacey. And we will move on to number 8. Discussion and consideration of a service agreement for audit services between the city of Lago Vista and Neffendorf and NOP PC.
Mayor, for me, this item is something that comes to the council every year. It can come at different times, but once we get to the end of nearing the end of a fiscal year, we are very excited to go through an audit process. Over the years with the council, we've talked about the desire to ensure that we're opening this process up so that we receive additional bids and we welcome additional firms to bid on our audit opportunities. However, even though we've advertised, we received only one bid for our annual audit services, and that bid came in from Neffendorf and Knopp, which is the same firm that completed our last fiscal year audit, and the audit before that, and the audit before that, and the audit, et cetera, before that. So the good thing is, we're excited to have Neffendorp continue want to do the service. We did contact 6 different firms that actually made contact with us, and we answered questions. They asked if the city was amenable to a new service provider. We told them definitely we're amenable to a new service provider. That actually we've had the conversation that it's nice to change audit service providers every 3 to 5 years would be very nice. These firms explained to us, all 6 of the firms said we'd love to. We have a number of municipal clients and other clients, and this time of the year is very busy, but we will consider putting in a bid. I really expected that we would have 3 or 4. We did receive a second, but it came in after the bid deadline by a few hours. Therefore, we could not legally accept it. So before you tonight, you have a proposal and a contract for Neffendorp and Knopp in the amount of $24,000 for the FY19 audit.
All right. Well, we're very familiar with them. Questions? Comments?
Josh, I'd like to know if it would be possible to extend the time element so that we can possibly listen to another bid. As I mentioned last year, one of the things that we found in going to newly elected conference last year, we found that there are many cities that prefer to see that there is a turnover of the companies that do the audits, that do the budget to begin with, and then audits as well, so that we don't end up in a situation where we have people that work so closely with us for so long that some things get missed or things of that nature. So I would like to see that we be able to have another firm, if one came in with, that just missed the deadline by hours, to extend the deadline to have other companies bid. Would that impact our budget cycle?
Well, Mayor, let me go with both these questions here. The first thing is, yes, council could choose to reject this bid and tell staff to open it back up. We could do it for a shorter period of time so that we move forward. It would not impact the budget. It would only impact our ability to complete the audit in a timely fashion. However, if we put it back out and we get a couple more bids, then potentially we could tell them, hey, you understand the time restrictions, you understand what the state requirements are. Anyone that's going to bid is going to be aware of the restrictions and be able to bid based on their ability to complete the audit in sufficient time. I wish I could tell you who the other firm was, but based on our guidelines, if a bid comes in late, we don't even open those bids. We return to sender. I handed it back to Star, and I'm assuming she mailed it. I don't know what she did with it, but that's how we lay it out, that we just send it back. So I don't even know what they included in it. It could have been a picture of the mayor, for all I know, with a price tag on it. No clue. So if that's what the council tells us to do, we'll gladly go back to the process. It will create a little bit of a timing challenge, but my thought is any firm that bids understands the time.
I met with them during their presentation, and I was very confident with their understanding of new government requirements, which I can't even tend to explain. And my first question was whether we were fully funded on the pension, and we were. And I'm comfortable with them continuing for another year.
I was also part of that same process, and I would agree with Councilman Collins. Comfortable, but sometimes that comfort gets to be more comfortable than is healthy. That's my feeling. So I would like to see that we move forward with opening the bid out and having more of these companies bid on the audit.
Would this be the fifth year? If this company was to, would this be the fifth year that they're handling it?
Mayor, I can't tell you the exact number, but I think it's definitely more than 5 years.
I think it's more than 5 years.
Star, I think we've had same auditor since 2012, at least.
Yeah, right.
Historically, we've had 3 or 4 different auditors, and all of them had about 10-year tenures.
Every decade, it's time for change.
Time for change.
That's what we go through. So these guys are only 3/4 of the way through their decade. You know, they've got ways to go.
Well, I was just wondering if it's, not to slow up the process, if it was better to just let them complete this audit and make sure that in the new year, we have 4 or 5 different bids, so that we're not slowing up the process. I understand you would like to see it now, but, I don't like slowing up the process.
And this is
Well-
just for 1 year, right?
This was the proposal's the same as last year. It gives a 1 year out. Mayor, I
Every
agree.
year, though.
Right, so it's a 3-year agreement, but it gives us the 1 year to get out of the audit should we want to, which I believe it's always good to come back in this process. I believe the advertising it every year is still fantastic. The challenge is, we did exactly what Mayor Pro Tem said last year, and we shopped it through the year. So usually at TML and these other conferences, I'll just walk right past auditors because you don't want to talk to them. But I stopped and said, hey, we would like to welcome some other bids. And so we've laid the foundation, and you still get that lack of response. It's kind of like what Eric and Roy have said on a number of projects. We still have to get the bidders. And if the people aren't bidding on services, that's a challenge. But we received those calls this time around from 3 were from Houston. So I know that it's had the outreach. And so I know that they're close, but if we just don't get that response.
So be it.
But I still welcome the opportunity to keep putting things out
Right,
as much as possible.
right.
Do you feel like if we went shopping again right now for this process, you're gonna get any new bids or any bids at all?
Personal feeling, maybe if we called the people to explain to them how they missed the deadline, we would get a second. We don't call directly, but based on the fact that their bid was late, we could call them with, our integrity would not be compromised by explaining to them that they were not considered based on the fact that their bid was received late. We actually asked for legal to interpret, because the interesting thing is they mailed it on let me just clarify, maybe they mailed it on a Friday, they paid for next day, and it didn't get here till Monday. And it was Monday at 4, we opened up bids at 2. Anyway, they were, theoretically, if they got what they paid for, it would have been here on time. But they didn't get what they paid for, and we can't interpret that. We only do it based on time. So that, Councilor Bartholow, I can't tell you we'll receive anybody else. Maybe we could get 1 or 2, maybe.
I'm not know if I'm all that confident somebody waits until the last minute on auditor
Right,
to submit documents.
right.
They need to be on time, in time,
But they
and they're
paid,
late.
but they paid for the service.
Why didn't they send it
The-
Thursday,
the-
Wednesday?
The service just failed them.
If they sent it
Well,
Tuesday,
actually,
it'd
that
been
one
there
is
Wednesday.
better, man.
But we have no idea what their bid was.
Yeah.
Their bid could have been $36,000. It could have been $50,000. We
But it
have
could-
no
But
idea.
it also could have been half of what this other bid was, so you have no way of
They're not
knowing.
in there.
You
We have
can't-
no way of
That's
knowing.
not something you can predict.
Correct.
So I don't see any real problem in extending the time to
There's also a
get enough.
possibility we reopen it and nobody bids.
That's right. Because, this person already put out their bid. so-
I think that's almost negligible, because they've done the audit every year, guaranteed they're going to resubmit.
Well, make your motion, man.
My motion is that we extend the deadline for submitting a proposal for an audit.
Mayor, just to clarify here, and you can go back to Councilor Davila, we would actually, if you'll motion to reject the bid, and then, I guess you could reject the bid and then re-advertise. Is that copacetic?
That's correct.
I don't even know what that word means, but it sounded like it fit, so.
I move that we reject the bid and and what was it?
Re-advertise.
And re-advertise. Thank you.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion fails 4-3.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the audit as it is and to establish, looking at, again, continuing to look for different auditors, but let this process move forward.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second by Tim.
Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
I just want to clarify the question. Does that mean does that provide city manager the ability to execute the contract by accepting the bid?
Yes.
Okay.
Do I have to say that?
I'm just clarifying.
Okay.
Now that you've clarified, I would say legally that gets us to a point, but
Okay.
And Tim, you're good with that?
I am seconding.
All right. Do I have a motion and a second? Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Was that 6-1 or is that,
6-1.
was there 2 abstains or
Just one?
6-1?
6-1.
All right, motion carries 6-1. Number 9, discussion and consideration of a request from Firewise for City of Lago Vista funding.
Mayor, I'm going to lead off with this. We, every year, the city council, during the budget process, receives requests from civic organizations for funding that would come in our non-departmental budgets. What we've said over the last 2 years is we'd also like to open it up throughout the year, that should a need arise within the community, organizations know that they can submit those requests to the city council at any point during the fiscal year, and council will consider those. Recently, there was discussions based on our Firewise processes here within the community, and although there was support and awareness, there was a lack of funding. So in our conversations with Mr. Ron Smith, who's here tonight, the thought came up of, if this is a viable outreach in the community that has support and awareness, then why would you not make that request back to the city council? Mr. Smith sent the request in. He put the request in for $2,500 for Firewise for the current year, and that would be, that included deliverables of public awareness, town hall meeting, and lot compliance signs. So we actually gave, this may surprise you, a very detailed request, and we've included that in the packet. If funded, this would come out of general fund. As I said, Mr. Smith is here to answer any questions or clarify.
Question. What's a lot compliance sign?
Pretty easy. If a lot is cleaned, if someone, the fire marshal goes to a lot and says you're in violation and someone clears a lot, then there's a sign, theoretically, there could be a sign that says you have complied, it has been Firewised, if that's an action verb. Or if it's non-compliant, then you could state that it was a non-compliant lot, i.e. cited by the fire marshal.
So
I'm an
there's two-
anti-sign guy. I'm okay with the deal, but I just don't want signs going up where we've been successful or where we're not.
And I'd send that back to Mr. Smith for any other clarification on how I've never gone to a Firewise meeting, so I can't speak to exactly how the operation would work.
Ron, would you like to answer that question?
Okay, Ron Smith, 20609 Oak Ridge. What the discussion is about here is when people are asked to clean their lots or they voluntarily clean their lots, that when the code enforcement officer makes his rounds and he deems that the property is now compliant to the ordinances, which are Firewise standards, that a sign be placed for a period not to exceed 60 days so that people can start to understand, hey, that's what a Firewise lot looks like. Okay, so it's kind of backwards to what we do with the zoning case where you put the sign up and then you wait a period of time and then you have your zoning meeting. This would be about the same size sign, only work in reverse. Is when the lot gets cleared and on the backside you have 60 days to say it's done. and then the sign would come up.
Is this voluntary, Ron?
Voluntary to the extent, we do have our code, in the property area of the code, we do have Firewise language that requires certain restrictions be met, and those basically center around lots around homes.
Well, I meant putting a sign on the lot that says it's compliant, that would be only if the owner agreed.
Well, I talked to Roy on this briefly to see if this was even possible. Right now, it'd probably be considered as a temporary sign because it's only got a 60-day limit on it. We were actually kind of looking to the code enforcement officer to be the administrator of that. Right now, you don't have that many lots getting cleaned up every year. You probably got 150, 200 lots that are being Firewise. The rest of them have homes going on them. So, you never have probably more than 20 or 30 out at any given time because it's kind of a rolling number that sits out there.
My question was, if somebody does have a compliant lot but doesn't want the sign?
We're not necessarily looking to put it on there if they're already done. It's basically, we're going to just start it and go forward. We're not going to try to retrofit, any lots that have already been cleared or cleaned.
Right, I think his question though is like, if I have a lot and I Firewise it, and I'm compliant, but I don't want the sign, do I have to put a sign?
No,
on it
I
for
don't,
60
we're
days?
not asking for that. We're just trying to find a way to let people understand what does a Firewise compliant lot look like? And how would I know it without a sign telling me that's what it was?
I think one of the things that you could do if you had the signs, because I look at several different areas where I've seen that those lots have been Firewised already, is to pick certain lots that are vacant lots, that have already been Firewised and put up the sign and say, this is a representation of Firewise if you're trying to educate the public.
Yeah, that's the gist of that sign program.
Okay.
You still have to have the property owner's permission to put that sign up though.
Yeah, correct. Okay.
We've never done this before. I don't think any city's ever done this before, so we're kind of pioneering some new area here.
But I do like the awareness of the signs. I do think the signs is a good idea to make everybody aware. I'm just wondering if 60 days is the right, do we want a sign, do we want?
The committee talked about it. I was the one that kind of came up with the 60-day rule. Having come from towns where I have a plethora of signs and you actually get sign clutter, I'm actually a proponent of fewer signs and more signs, but when you're trying to solve a problem, I think you have to at least try to see if you can't do something to make the people aware, but I don't want it to be everlasting either.
But there would be benefit in having a sign up so that people become aware of what a lot like this looks like, just as you said earlier. I think it would be a promotional thing, and I think it'd be a good thing if we did something like that.
Well, that's kind of the goal, and I'm kind of focusing on Lago Vista first. Understand Firewise is really everything on the north side of Lake Travis. We also have Jonestown. We also have Point Venture. We also have Waterford POA, and we have unincorporated county. And the way the Firewise works is we have a big umbrella called education and awareness, because when you advertise, you're advertising to everybody anyway. And then the mitigation projects would fall underneath the communities. Because, for example, if you go into the county, they don't have ordinances. Okay, if you go into Waterford, they're a POA. They're controlled by POA. They're not controlled by city ordinances. Point Venture, Lago Vista, and Jonestown would be controlled by ordinances. So we're kind of trying it here because we do have an ordinance-based city, but as we go forward, we may have other communities that may struggle with this. So you're kind of like the pilot test.
So Ron, I understand you guys have reached out to some of the other POAs to get more funding. Is that successful so far?
Well, we're in progress right now. This is the first bus stop on the tour. Naomi Giro, who's the ESD 7 commissioner, she lives in Point Venture. She plans on going to the village on this same matter. The Waterford POA is also willing to make contributions, and we got Sam going to to Jonestown to work on that side. We don't want Lago Vista to bear the entire cost for the education training. It's a regional thing, and we'd like everybody in the region to contribute. We think population is probably the fairest metric we can use to determine allocation of funds. So that's what's going on right now. We're starting. You're the first one up. Others are coming, and that's where we're at right now.
So you'll be reaching out to LVPOA?
Yes, probably so. We got another meeting on this next week, so we'll pick that up next week.
I think the thing that we're talking about here, though, is funding for Firewise. I went to the last two meetings that you had, as you all know, and I was really, frankly, surprised to hear the lack of funding that you have. I think when the treasurer's report was read 2 meetings ago, it was like $20 is what you had. So I thought it was important to come back to council, and I spoke to Josh about the need to have money made available to Firewise so that we can continue to forward that whole process.
Just some background for those of you not familiar. We've been around for 8 years. We've never asked for any money from the cities. First few years under the Bastrop fires, people were engaged. The farther you get away, they're not so engaged. Over the last 3 years, we tried to go through grants. The problem that we have is that we're all in the same zip code. When we file that grant through State Farm Insurance, they're trying to spread the money out. They don't want 3 out of the same zip code because we're small communities, so they're spreading it out so we get like one crack, one bite at the apple. This time we didn't get any money. That's why we dried up. So we're kind of at an inflection point right now. So we're kind of like either we do something or we pack our bags and go home.
Right. I think it's pretty easy to forget about something like the Bastrop fires. The further out you go from the time of the event, the easier it is to forget about it. Or if you're just moving into the area, you're completely unaware of the fact that we do have this imminent threat of fire here every year. I don't know that it ever gets any better. So I think having money available to use to educate the public about the need for Firewise and the things that you do, I think is super important.
The one thing I tried to point out on the request is when the FEMA pre-disaster mitigation was put forward, fire was the #1 risk element. And the city, since for the last 8 years, have really done very little in trying to educate and make citizens aware. Some people have moved away, some people have passed away. A lot of people have moved in, they don't know, they come from areas that are, like on the coast with a lot of water, St. Augustine grass, big trees, and they don't know what we have here. So it's a paradigm shift for them. And that's what this is attempting to overcome, is that paradigm shift. I guarantee you, when you start seeing those embers flying in front of your door, it'll get your attention in a hurry, and then we won't have enough resources to deal with it at that time.
Right.
Any other questions?
Mr.
Any
Mayor?
further questions? It's open for
Mr. Mayor,
consideration.
I make a motion to approve the request from Firewise of the $2,500.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries unanimous. Thank you, Ron. All right, number 10, discussion and consideration of options for service line warranty program. And this was mine, so I will lead this off. Let me go back up here to my main page. All right, so for the benefit of the city, the citizens out here, in June, we had Emily Zalfini with this company came and do her presentation. Unfortunately, we had 0 people attend our council meeting in June. Not a single citizen attended. So unless you went and watched the video, nobody saw the presentation and everything she did. Now, the reason that I brought Ms. Salfini in is over the last couple of years, I have had people come to me and say, hey, I have trouble paying for a grinder pump. My grinder pump had just gone out. I got $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 water bill. Does the city have any way to help me pay for my grinder pump? The answer was no. I have no way. I actually had a plumbing service company, and I don't know which one it was at this point, but they also had said, hey, you know, it might be a good idea if the city offered something. I had brought that up to city administration a couple of years ago. That was not something that was doable. So it had kind of fallen away. This company was brought forward by the National League of Cities as somebody that does warranty service. So I thought, well, here is a program that would help possibly people pay for plumbing repairs, including their grinder pumps. So I invited them to come in and make the presentation. Didn't really know much about it. Because people had asked about it, I listened to the citizens. It was your vision, your request, your wants. So that's what I did. I brought them in. Before I brought them in, one thing I did was go on our social media and ask if anybody, and I described it. I didn't give prices or anything like that. I just described the services and asked if anybody would be interested in this. The people who did respond said yes, they would be interested in it, but they needed more information and prices and stuff like that. So based on that, I did go ahead and put it on the agenda and brought it to you all in June and had the presentation. Well, since then, I have been contacted by a lot of our local residents and business owners, and they have expressed their concerns with this type of program. So I have actually asked some of them to come and speak on this point tonight, because I would like for y'all to hear, y'all have seen the presentation. So now I would like for you to hear from people, so.
Mayor, for me, before they start, there was a few questions by council at the last meeting, and I've got a couple of those answers. I can do those after or before, whichever you prefer.
We'll do them first.
Okay, that's great. Do the questions.
Do the questions first.
Sorry. So one of the questions was, how do the sponsorships work, and who are the cities that this service, who do they work with? The National League of Cities, you already mentioned, Mayor. 7 state league of municipalities sponsor the program, including the Texas Municipal League. And then there are 500 plus cities that they offer the warranty program, with 41 of those in Texas. One of the questions was asked by a counselor, can they do this program in the community without having the city's name on their marketing material? The answer back from them is, at this time, they only offer the program through a partnership with the city. The text box would read Lago Vista or to the residents of Lago Vista. They did respond and say that all marketing material would have to be approved by the city. So if there was an improper use of our name or likeness, then the city could reject that. One question was asked if there are other providers that offer this service in the area. And so we looked up other providers. Service Line Warranty of America, that is one of the larger companies. They do not provide service to our area. American Water Resources of Texas, that one's really popular around Austin, Cedar Park, and Round Rock region. They offer a service, water, sewer, in-home plumbing for $15.99 a month. And then HomeServe, also a larger service provider in the great state of Texas, they offer a service of exterior water and wastewater lines for $22 a month. And another question was asked of clarification of how they select local contractors to be providers. And they said could be one of two options. The city could provide a list of local contractors if we have that information, or they will begin their search through just marketing online, and then even use something in the nature of Angie's List. Not real familiar with Angie's List, but I know it's a service provider website. And then they made a comment that no matter how they begin their search, their vetting procedures and requirements are contractors must have proper levels of insurance, they must be licensed and bonded, and they cannot have any open complaints with the Better Business Bureau, and they run background checks and drug screenings. One other request was, are there other companies that the National League of Cities sponsors for this program? And in contacting the National League of Cities, no, this is the only service provider that they sponsor throughout the United States for the program. Okay, I think that's most of it, Mayor. You had some other questions too, but I think that covers the questions that were asked by council at the last meeting.
All right. So, like I say, I brought some of our local business owners and some citizens in to address this issue. So at this time, if there's any of y'all who would like to speak on this, state your name and address for everybody on television, please. You have a tentative 3 minutes.
All right, I'll get there. Jacob Lance, 20504 High Drive. I'd like to thank the fellow trades in this room this evening that came. Would like to make a correction. Electrical services is included, as I have called the company. Well, I think, Mayor, you were good-hearted in nature at what you're trying to do. It's kind of funny that in the same evening that we have economic development talks and how we can increase economic activity in this community, the council would consider destroying a company in this community. In the last city council meeting, a firm called Service Line Warranties of America presented their product and services. The services rendered are to offer a warranty program that is backed and endorsed by the city of Lago Vista. These services are to include, but not limited to, plumbing and electrical services. It has also come up that the city would take a 10% kickback of all services rendered by this company. As a citizen of this community and a local business owner, I have several concerns and take great offense to the city council even entertaining this program. As a citizen, I can see the allure to being able to avoid costly home repairs when they arise, but at what cost? The SLWA has some of the worst reviews I've ever seen for a warranty company, seeming that almost all local businesses in this area will not work with a warranty company. If they can't use local businesses, how long will we be waiting for service companies from Austin to come out here? If they do not arrive in a timely manner, will the city send someone out to restore their good name? Because your name is on it. If the warranty company does not honor the program, will the city honor it for them? After all, their seal is on the envelope that we would receive in the mail. Of the 10% in kickbacks that the city would receive from all services rendered, how will the city use those funds? If I were to start a business in this community, should I worry that one day I would have to compete with local government? Is this program to cater to a small portion of the community, much like the $2 beer fiasco we had a few years ago? Who are we subsidizing? I think we all remember $2 beers. A restaurant next to the late Highland Lakes Golf Course opened up and started selling beer for $3.25. The city-owned golf course operating out of a shack said, I don't think so. And sold city beer, $2. Once again, a restaurant in Lago Vista shut down. If those golfers had to buy that $3.25 beer, would they have bought more food from that restaurant? Would we still have that restaurant? Am I really on a 3-minute timetable?
Mm-hmm.
Can I get an extension?
You can have somebody donate some time to you.
Can I have somebody donate some time? 3 minutes? Thank you. All right. I'd like to read a couple of reviews real quick. I'm sure through all of your research you've done, you will have read these reviews. I'm only going to read 2, 3. These people are thieves. They steal from you. You call to cancel your account and they do not cancel it, but continue to charge you, and then they will not refund all the money they had stolen from you. If you use this company plan on extremely poor service and then stealing your money and not honoring their commitment or canceling your account, my mother is 72 years young and had this warranty company for several years now. She had a water line under her house break in October 2017, 6 months ago. I was helping her out with some bills and came across this warranty. When we called to see if they would help reimburse her some of the expense, they refused. $6,229. I was in Kennedale, Texas. This is my favorite one. This will be the last one. This company misrepresents itself as being somehow part of the city water department, which it is not. Never do business with a company that tries to deceive you right from the start. The contract they provide does not list the hidden terms of the service agreement. All considered, this should be considered a scam. And I'll wrap up real quickly here. From a business owner standpoint, it makes me very sad and frustrated that the city would partner with a competing entity to hurt my business. In case you don't understand, we as businesses refuse to work for warranty companies. In my experience, warranty companies are very hard to get paid from. They dictate price based on unrealistic expectations. They are not in the business of losing money, so they do everything they can to avoid paying service providers. As for this city, we spent 8 years advertising, building our brand in this community. Now the city is going to give their stamp and seal to a warranty company so they can offer a completely outrageous program that, according to reviews, won't be able to honor. They essentially are going to help this out-of-state warranty company advertise and give them credibility only to rob monies from our city and take it back to Pennsylvania. My companies have over 45 employees in this town, half of which are from this town or live in this town. The money spent with our company largely stays in this community. Our employees spend money at local businesses, pay taxes, and serve the community. So not only are you trying to kill my business, but you're wanting to rob other businesses of revenue as well. Rob other businesses such as Exxon and Hillside, who we spend $8,000 in fuel every month. My landlord of X amount of rents that pay for property taxes. I believe property taxes were mentioned this evening by the economic development person. Every restaurant that our office staff and employees use on a daily basis. Some of our employees have started their plumbing careers in our company and bought homes in this community, 2 this year. The list goes on and on. Essentially, my tax dollars are funding my competition. Can I get another?
No, you
Hey.
can't.
All right.
No.
Jacob.
Thank you, Jake.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, so in addition to Jacob, I have fielded calls from several other businesses in the area. And it has been my impression since this came out in June that this is not necessarily something that is beneficial for our city.
Right.
So I could have just pulled it off the agenda, but because I had already invited people to come and speak and stuff, I left it on the agenda.
Okay.
So at this time, I am going to make a motion that we do not approve the service line warranty program.
I'll second that.
All right, I've made the motion. I have a second from Dave. Any further questions?
Mr. Mayor, can I just make a comment?
Yes.
Yeah, and I want to make a comment too.
It's unfortunate that just because we listen to something up here, there's a decision by our citizens that we have decided to stick it to you. There should be at least the opportunity for us to bring it back and to discuss it before everybody decides, oh my God, they're trying to ruin us. I don't think there's anybody up here that's trying to ruin anybody. We'll listen to presentations from just about anybody for things that could be good for the city. Doesn't mean that once we listen to it, we decide that that's what we need to do. We look at it, we discuss it, we go to the internet, we look at the reviews, we discuss those kind of things. But if we don't ever get a presentation up here, we don't know anything about it. I had never heard of anything like this before. This is the very first time I'd ever even seen anything like this. Now, when I looked at it, it's nothing I was going to have the city put a stamp on or approve. But I would just like the consideration of having time for us to look at these things before everybody decides that we've jumped in on it and we're trying to destroy the city. Most of the time, we're trying to do what's good for the city. This was a worthwhile thing to look at. It's not a worthwhile thing to do. But I will listen to anybody that presents something that looks like it will benefit our city.
My sentiments are the same also. I mean, I don't like to be accused of doing something. I met with you, Jason, Jacob, head to head. You know, we discussed it. I don't need you to come to me and lecture me on how I'm going to vote without you even letting me vote, okay? All right? I give you the benefit of the doubt, you give me the benefit of the doubt. I know you're worried about your business, got it. I know Tommy's worried about his business, got it. I'm worried about everybody's business, okay? I want you to do well. But there are issues that our committees face. There are issues, Park and Recreation, Planning and Zoning, Board of Adjustments. When they bring up the issues need to be vented. That's the logical way of doing it, whether it's 22-foot height, whether it's Lago Vista Village, whatever the issues are, they need to be brought to the table. That does not mean that because we bring something to the table that we're going to vote in a positive direction on that subject, all right? You got 7 smart people up here. You got a city manager that's been other places. We're trying to broaden our scope, make Lago Vista the best that we can be, but we have to deal with the issues at hand. And I'd rather than people doubt my ability to be honest and fair with the community, you got to give us the benefit of the doubt. And if we don't deliver then come to me. But don't accuse me of doing something that I'm not doing. Never. You're my partners. I'm there with you. Let's move forward. Thank you very much.
And I think this is a perfect example of why we have this system in place. Council gets a presentation, and it's allowed for the citizens to look at it, comment, get back with their council members, and let them know how they feel, and show all the sides of the agenda item, and then we can come back, sit down, and vote on it based on everything. Because we could, in June, when we had it on, we couldn't get the other side from the citizens, because we had 0 people in the audience. There was no way to hear from anybody. So this is a perfect example how, well, we haven't taken the vote yet, but a perfect example of how the council has put something forward. They have listened to their community and said, okay, this does not work, and this is the reason why. So,
Mayor, I want to add, if you got a minute for me, there was a few other comments that were made online and a few comments just made. For the presentation that was provided to Lago Vista, electrical is not in the agreement. The agreement's actually in the packet. Electrical is not in there. So I want to make sure we're dealing with facts here and not just making things up. Another council member asked if, I think the reference was a 10% kickback. A council member, actually Councilor Weatherly, asked us to pose the question to the company to say, if the council approved, could you just keep your money? And I asked that question. They said, sure, we'd gladly keep our money if you don't want it. So I think that was one of the things that was a critical element. The other thing is, someone said that our local providers don't want to participate in a home warranty service. And I can tell you personally that when we purchased our house in Lago Vista a couple of years ago, we had a home warranty service, and 2 of our providers actually serviced our home through that home warranty service. So there is a value there. The last point is, there's only maybe 2 of us in here that field calls from our residents every single day about their water and sewer bill. The mayor gets a lot of calls too, but between Star and myself, we field a lot of calls from people saying, I can't pay this, this, and this. It doesn't matter how affluent or non-affluent our community is, this is an issue. So one of the examples, and Jacob and I talked about this, is a warranty service or an insurance program is there so that if you have to pay $3,000 to fix a line or a pump, effectively, you may not pay $3,000 if you have a sufficient insurance. You may only pay $120 that year for that service, and so you'd pay $120 for that instead of paying $3,000. I just want to make sure we're looking at facts and not just theory of it's just trying to run people out of business. So I told Mr. Lance that from the work his guys do, because the city does a lot of work with Lance, that they would be someone that this company would do business with. I'm confident of that. But if he chooses not to, that would be it. But the quality of work wouldn't be an issue. And Lance has worked with other home warranty services. So we get those comments from people just like the mayor had well before I even came to the city saying, is there an opportunity for the city to bring in a service, just like an auditor? This is just something that happens. So no matter how the vote goes, just make sure we're looking at those points that people ask. I think there were a lot of questions online that were asked back to clarify. So I think that covers it.
And so the comments I've got, were like, okay, if we don't have local service providers working for the warranty company, where are the service providers going to come from? Cedar Park, Austin, things like that. So now that's where several things were brought into question. What kind of quality of work are we going to get from somebody that's not familiar and local to our community? And it's bringing in unfair competition to our local providers, simply because they chose not to work for this warranty provider. Accountability and responsibility with our name being on it. Who's going to be accountable? Who's going to be responsible? Yes, they say that we're indemnified and all that good stuff, but we all know how that stuff goes. So over the last 4 weeks of listening to the constituents and asking my questions and researching, at this point, that's why I've made the motion to.
I have a comment.
Yes.
And I don't know how we degenerated into getting to $2 beer, which I wasn't around for. But if we sold $700 of these things were sold, our kickback would have been $70. That would have swelled the city coffers, and we could have done all kinds of things with that money.
And I'd have to relook. I'm pretty sure that it was 50 cents per customer. I don't think it was 10% on our contract.
They're overstating.
But anyway, that's here. That's not here or there. The thing wasn't. It wasn't for city revenues. It wasn't for. Again, it was brought forward just because it was something people asked for, and I found something. So I was like, hey, here it is. Tell me what you think.
Mr. Mayor, I didn't have any problem with warranty companies, okay? I had a problem with us as a city representing one warranty company.
Right.
To me, I don't want to be in the warranty business. I don't want to be in the insurance business. That's not my job, okay? My job is if our constituents need warranty companies, I have a home warranty on all my appliances in my house, okay? So if someone needs something on their grinder pump or sewer line, we can give them names of companies that they can contact and go create their own deal, but I don't want it to be associated with the stamp of Lago Vista.
Right.
Because if something goes wrong with that company and they don't do something correctly, someone from the city, and I've had this happen, come to us and say, well, you need to fix this. Well, it's not a city problem. It's not something that the city can fix for you.
So I got one comment. I think we pretty much talked this thing to death, but I really appreciate you coming in and holding our feet to the fire, Jacob, that this is a serious position and it's a serious subject, and I appreciate hearing your feelings on it because, it didn't seem like that big a deal. I wasn't here for that meeting, but I don't want any citizen to ever come up here and feel like after you hold our feet to the fire, you're going to get lectured. So
I don't like being accused. Put some bunting up there, Don.
Okay.
I mean, we've all had conversations with Jacob. That no one's accusing him. I just didn't want him to automatically assume that we were
I'd like
going
to
to
have
vote
more
in the
citizen
budget.
input and
Yeah.
more people sitting in all these meetings.
Well, we do. You know, I'm on committees with him.
Again, we had 0 last month, so I tried to antagonize everybody to show up for this meeting.
Good job, man.
You did good, Mayor.
Did.
Good job.
Full house.
Let's move on.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Unless there's any further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion is denied. Or the motion is approved to deny to not go with the warranty program. So, thank you. Let's see, where are we at now? 11, discussion and consideration of a resolution number 19-1805, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Lago Vista, Texas, appointing an individual to fill an unexpired vacant term as a member serving on the Board of Adjustment.
Mayor, I was going to lead this one if you're fine. We've got Roy listed on it as our director, but the Board of Adjustment received a confirmation from a member, Jeff Cannon. He resigned from the board, and so at this point, his resignation was effective January of 2019. His term was set for 2 years and would have expired in January of 2021. We did include the resignation letter in the packet, and this item comes from Councilor Collins as the representative.
Yes, we had Michael, we looked at certain applications. Some folks are sitting on other committees, some are out, but I also asked members of the board if they had any recommendations, and we had an application from Michael Miskey and a recommendation from a board member for the same person. So I'm recommending Michael Miskey for the position.
All right.
Did you make a motion? Is that
It's a resolution.
resolution?
Yeah, I'll make a resolution to fill the spot with Michael Miskey, if that's all right.
I second
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Sorry, was there any questions?
it. Mike's a good guy.
Michael is on the Board of Adjustments. All right, number 12, recommendation from the Parks and Rec Committee for naming the city park.
Mayor, at our last city council meeting, Councilor Collins, even though he's not the member liaison to the Parks and Rec Committee, he stood in for Councilor Bartholow and then came back with an action item. He actually came back with a big sign from the Parks and Recreation Committee, stood in front of us, danced. And he did have a sign. What they were asking for is to bring the official naming process of the new sports complex and recreation facility to the city council in hopes that they would be able to move forward with a signage program. Councilor Bartholow brought some information to me earlier, and we had a discussion about, have we had more community input about the naming procedure for this park? It's kind of a big deal, as everyone knows, because it is our first foray into a city-owned park. And then the second question was, are we at a rush right now to name the city park? So answering those questions, we haven't gone through a city-oriented naming process. There has been, the Parks and Recreation Committee did a process online, which I think is what we would do anyway, and invite comments in. And then the second of time, the only benefit now to taking action is for signage and for having something to hold a name to when we're talking about the park. It would be to give it the name of the Josh Ray Sports Complex. I think that's out there, by the way. So that's all. That's the lead-in, Mayor, of that request coming back from the Parks Committee. I don't think that was their recommendation, by the way. It was a little different. I think it was Lago Vista Sports Complex.
Oh, okay.
But the other one is a really good option.
I think it was Sports Park.
Was it Sports Park?
Yeah, but I like complex.
What's on here is Lago
Well-
Vista Sports Complex.
And you say they did something online?
They did I think it was a Facebook survey.
Is that the
We have
same
a
thing?
speaker.
I have somebody who would like to.
Yeah.
Hello.
Irene Carrillo, 3800 Clinton Lane. I'm the one who did the survey. I'm here not as a representative of the committee, even though I'm on the committee. I joined in January, and they seemed eager to name it originally Cedar Break. And I told them that there's a Cedar Break in Georgetown already. And the other person who was new in January, Danny Carroll, both of us asked for a list of what they had gone through, and they didn't have a list of other names, so we postponed it to the next month. And I thought I'd do this unofficial survey. It wasn't done by the committee. I just did it myself. It was only a week long, and I got 76 people to respond on Lago Vista Community Bulletin Board and Lago Vista Bulletin Community Board. And you see the results of what the community. So I'm just asking to consider what the people want, along with the Park and Rec Committee.
And Mayor, I didn't pass this back out from Ms. Carrillo, so the number she shows out of 76 was the total.
Yeah.
55 of those votes, so a very strong majority, was North Shore Sports Park. And then the second leading vote getter was Lago Vista Community Sports Park, and then after that, Vista Lakes Sports Park. So out of 76, that's...
The 55 was North Shore. Because my original thinking was to get citizens involved, we were going to make a contest out of this.
Mhm.
We were going to advertise it, open it up to the community, and get people to submit formal names and stuff, and then put it out there for.
Yeah, I like that idea. I only had 4 names originally, and 2 of the other ones were added by people who said add this, so.
And Mr. Mayor, as the liaison, I was new on that committee, and I don't feel like anyone was, they were just trying to do their job to get the park named and move forward, but there didn't seem to be a whole lot of passion for any name or the other, and there wasn't a whole lot of agreement there. So I think you're right, we need to go out, do something a little bit more public and get a good name. Something that
I mean,
people
Lago
remember.
Vista, I'd like something more unique than Lago Vista or North Shore. Everything's Lago Vista or North Shore.
Well, one of the people on the committee said that
Gotta figure out.
they felt it was a city park, so it should be Lago Vista, but I kind of think when you say North Shore to people outside of the area, they think here, but you say Lago Vista, well, where's that, So,
Well, so it'd be the Josh Ray North Shore City Park.
That tells you where it's at, Mayor. It's, all joking aside, unless you're being serious, somebody vote for that.
The only North Shore I know is Hawaii.
I mentioned to Councilor Bartholow earlier that one of the things that we would, as staff-wise, we leave it out there is potentially, let's say you get a sponsor and that comes in and says, we want to give you money. A lot of times you get sponsors, and we've talked about this with the Parks Board, you get sponsors that want to sponsor scoreboards or a particular field, and that's about the amount you get. But theoretically, there could be this great donor that decides, hey, I'd like to give X number of dollars to have a section of it named after. I think if we're able just to leave it out there for longer, if Dr. Pepper comes along and they want to have naming rights for $5 million for our park, at least you could consider it. And it would be the Dr. Pepper Lago Vista Josh Ray Park.
So since you threw that hook out there, we're not naming it Nike Park.
Well, I'm just saying, if the dollars are there for somebody to pay for it all,
North Cubby Park.
Name the fields after him, not the park.
Potentially, but one of the things that the Parks and Recreation Committee's talked about is generating sponsorships. Again, we're at a $3.4 million estimate right now in a park that could go up to $5 or $6 million. So they're going to work on these things. If council's good by not taking action now, it allows more flexibility for, as Councilor Robbins says, individual parks, sections, playground. I mean, playground equipment's going to cost us potentially $150,000 just on a playground apparatus. Those things, if they don't blow your mind, I don't know what does. And so we want to be able to have some flexibility out there. And then if you're able to do a good community input process, then we can come up with more options and we'll tie in the Parks and Rec Committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a recommendation that we decline the approval of the naming of the park until a later date.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in, any further discussion?
Nay.
Do what?
Nay.
No. All those in favor
Who
say aye.
seconded?
No, I said that he has any further discussion. I said nay. No.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Dave.
Williams seconded. All right, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries unanimous. We will wait to name the park. And we will come up with the process. All right, all matters listed under consent agenda are to be considered routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be separate discussion on these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Number 13, approval of June 20, 2019 council meeting minutes. All right, please share your correction with us.
Starr pointed out that she was not at the June 20th meeting, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that my bad? Did I include her in the roll count? Or was that just a?
It was probably just my error. I'll take it out.
All right.
Do we have to make an amendment to the motion for the consent agenda for that?
Yeah.
The
Look
motion
from
would be
consent to
approve
vote
the
on it.
minutes with the correction.
With the correction. All right, Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion that we approve the consent agenda with the noted correction.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second from Arch Davila. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion carries.
God bless you.
Discussion item. City manager report.
Mayor, I have two updates that I'd like to provide. One update is we talked at the last meeting that the state legislature ended up their session and they did a lot of work during their session. A lot of their work impacted our local government directly and our citizens. And so one of the things that we would like to do, we included a simple wrap-up from Texas Municipal League inside of the agenda packet, but we have a 128-page document that we are going to put on the city website, which basically lists out all of the items that each bill that was approved. And so if people are interested in that summary, I think it's 128 pages. It'll be on the website. We'll post it, potentially we'll post it tomorrow. And that way people can look at it and review. A couple of the things that the cities have followed real closely is a property tax reform. One of the big challenges that's faced the legislature for the past 3 sessions is this grandiose idea that property tax reform will occur. Every time it starts, it seems it's not really property tax reform, it's just property tax change. There's a lot of exemptions, there's things moved in and out. This year, what we saw was populations, cities with populations over 30,000 will have a cap placed on their ability to increase their tax revenues year over year, minus their new construction of 3.5%. That's something that's new for those cities over 30,000. The cities under 30,000 do not have that cap. They have a different type of matrix, but for this coming year, that matrix will not be applied. It'll actually only begin starting calendar year 2020. And so the news for local governments is you don't make those changes this year, but the following budget year, we'll have to address how that works out. For local governments under 30,000, the challenge is if you're going to exceed a couple of thresholds, either the 8.5% or there's another point there.
Some diminis.
That word, some Italian something.
500,
De minimis something.
De minimis.
That'll be on the page. You could look it up.
I think it's Latin.
That's that too. It's not Italian. No one speaks Italian except the Italians. So that in itself will trigger a mandatory vote by the citizenry. So grand scheme of things, it's exactly what local governments have been doing for a number of years, except this is a mandatory trigger. Now it's only if you exceed a certain point, it's if the citizens decide to call a special election on a tax increase, whereas now this would just be mandatory. So it's we expect this to be implemented on the under 30,000 population at the next legislature, or potentially it could be removed altogether. Another item that we followed, and this is only one more just to talk about real quick, is the removal of regulations of local governments in the great state of Texas on siding material on homes. The new legislation says that no city, doesn't matter size, shape, fashion, or population, can regulate the material used on the exterior of homes outside of the National Building Code. So that's we're all going to use it across the board. We're all the same. What our city staff is recommending, and we're working with our legal team on, is leaving our codes in place. But if someone were to come in and say, hey, I want to build this that doesn't fit your code, I'm going through the building code, then they can operate with the building code. Our ordinances are null and void now on these restrictions. For example, if we have a siding requirement of 65% and it has to be, fake example, but it had to be all in block. If that doesn't fit the building code, then it doesn't matter. It's a moot point now based on the legislator's actions. So there are a number of items that impact local government, that impact our citizens. And so instead of taking the next 3 hours and going through them all, I want to put that online and hope that anyone that's watching that has any questions, review it, call me, send me an email, and we'll go over it. Maybe you think it impacts you. Maybe it doesn't. I'll gladly go over it. And if it's outside of my purview, we'll call Aaron, and then Aaron can go over these items. We open up our staff to anyone that has questions. For example, when Pat just left, Pat called the other day, Pat Nury, and he had a question, and he said, hey, we're trying to figure out an answer. I said, Pat, this was yesterday, actually. I said, Pat, if you can come in now, Aaron is here, you could sit down with our city attorney and talk to her directly without going through staff. And that's just because we work with Pat and we have that level of confidence that if he's got a question, it's just faster to go straight to our attorney and then get something set up. So same thing for these legislative changes. The mayor went to this session. Councilor Weatherly went to the session. We can all tell you what we heard, but if you've got specifics, it's easier to look at them individually. So,
Josh, do each of these two things that you talked about, do they both go into effect September 1? Is that
the tax changes do not go into effect until January 1.
okay?
The building standards September 1. And there's a lot of them that are staggered like that. They pick the date. One of the discussions was to put something 3 years out. And you do this a lot in terms of sunsetting and effectiveness. But that's one of the critical elements is once you read that item, check the effective date to see when it'll impact you.
Just FYI, Texas State Legislature, everything goes, unless otherwise said, everything goes into effect 90 days after the end, which is always September 1st. So unless otherwise said, it's always September 1st.
Okay.
And something on that property tax for the potential of the city losing ad valorem tax. Any increase we have in retail sales tax offsets what we lose in.
Mr.
Is that
Mayor?
right, Eric? Yes.
Right. Mayor, Aaron.
Yes.
Had a question.
I just wanted to make one comment. Josh did a great summary of kind of what's coming your way, and the 120 pages, I've lived it for the last few weeks. There's one area where I think this it'll be really important for us to put some really close eyes on, and we may need to go through the process to make some changes to our subdivision ordinances, and that's from House Bill 3167. It changes the timing and the process of how this all works, and it may impact how some of our Planning and Zoning Commission, the timing of their scheduled meetings. And so I'm going to bring back to you here in the next couple weeks to council through Josh some additional information on what I think, how this is really going to impact Lago Vista, because that's something where if we're preparing for rapid growth, we need to be ahead of that curve and have our subdivision ordinance ready.
We just changed their meeting.
I know.
Are we gonna have to change it again?
not here yet.
Possibly, not yet. We just need to look very closely at how the timing affects everything, because there are very short timeframes now for plating and the approval processes. It's more prescriptive than it had been in the past. And so I want to kind of bring through Josh, a proposal of how we need to look at that, because it may affect what ends up on your desk.
Got it.
Mayor, I have one more update. The mayor pointed out earlier that we're in the process of developing our budget and the budget calendar. We will have the delivery of the draft budget proposal to the council by the 31st. If there is, I'd like to have that in a workshop setting, one that we can stream live at a particular time, no matter what that time is, and that way it can be on YouTube as well. If there's an opportunity on the 30th or the 31st, I'm going to send you out an email so everybody can check your calendars. But we'd like to advertise and see within that 3-day window what we can get a special meeting. We don't want to wait till the first meeting in August, because this deserves its own workshop. But we want to be able to present it to council and go through it just in the big picture. That could be an hour workshop, but I'll send that out probably tonight. And if you could just check calendars, because we'll need to advertise that. We want to set that date for that discussion.
All right.
That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, we are into future meetings. Number 15, consider our schedule and any items for future council meetings. Anybody have anything? All right, I have a couple of things. With our budget calendar, I don't know if we want to do this at the July 30th meeting or whenever we want to do this, but I want to make sure that we have, our budget includes full, complete updates on our CIP projects and the associated logic accounts on all of those. Couple of things I want to add to our agendas for each council meeting. And I'll get with you more on whether I want it the first or the third meeting. But starting in October, I would like to see us include our board and committee updates added to just a brief overview of what is taking place, because they're not televised. So unless got a call?
It's you.
It's me.
It's the video.
Oh.
Trying to catch you on the YouTube, I didn't realize it was on Vista.
Oh, okay. Now I lost my train of thought.
Board
Oh,
committee.
so just, yes, so our boards and committees, we do our city manager reports. I would like for us to, since we do have the luxury of television in this meeting, I would like for us to just give brief overviews of what the committees discussed at their last meeting. And then, I want to start doing quarterly updates from all of our departments. So starting October 1, we'll have updates from all of our from a certain number of our departments, October, November, December, and then we start over in January. And mostly what I'm looking for out of those quarterly updates are the CIP plans, and again, the logic accounts that go with them, and then any of their succession plans that are in place for their personnel and equipment and stuff like that. And I had, darn it, I had one more.
Mayor, will we continue to do monthly reports or not do monthly reports?
Yes.
Written documents?
Yes, but I would like it in the format so that we can be, I would like to take that information so we can share that with the public. Because those are coming to us, but it's not getting out to the people. So they're always calling questions like our streets. I know we had promised, I don't know if promise is the right word, but we had told people that we would have a by name street list of when their street was gonna get repaired, when it would be on the list, and we were telling them by summer. It's, our next meeting on August 1st will be halfway through summer, and we have not furnished that list to the people who have been asking for that. And so there's, items like that. So I'll get together with y'all on more specifics, but
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is the physical part of the staff member being here to read those out and the hard documents are online. If people are trying to get the information, if it's put online, they'll have the information. I'm just trying to clarify doing a monthly report and then doing a physical quarterly
like
report.
CIP plans, council used to be provided with nice color-coded CIP plans that had all this information on it, when they were due and how much money, where they were, and I just haven't seen this. And
We have that, Mayor, it's in the budget document, and then when we do a CIP update, because in clarifying the CIP,
Okay, 'cause
Yeah.
this one I have here shows that almost every single one of our CIP should be completed and closed out by now. And we should be moving into, our year 2 and 3 and stuff like this. So I just want to make sure, everybody up here has all this information. And I would assume because we're moving into new budget, some of these CIP projects are going to be in there. But I just want to make sure. So the best way I can think of to do that is to make sure it's on the agenda.
Mayor, when you're saying
Can we
CIP,
talk
you mean
about
CIP
that?
or CMP?
CIP, capital improvement
Okay.
projects.
I just say, and we'll do that. We'll do whatever the council asks us to do, but it may be me providing the reports for every one of them. It's just
No, I
report.
Yeah.
I've got it. I'm trying to clarify. One, there'll be a monthly report from all the boards and commissions.
No, I would, quarterly,
Quarterly.
yeah. And I didn't want to do all of them in one month. That's why I said,
Stagger them.
yeah, some in September, some in October, some in November, some in December. That way,
And what would they, this is going to get into the council liaison stuff, but what would they be
Oh, you're talking-
reporting?
okay,
What would they be reporting? Their minutes are on the webpage.
well, they
boards
are,
com-
but they're usually 2-3 months behind by the time they get, some of our boards only meet quarterly, so their minutes may not be approved till the next quarter. It may go months before people see
For instance, the Board of Adjustment, would they be reporting what happened with all their cases?
not necessarily, just a brief overview, say, hey,
It's fences. Fences, fences, fences.
yeah.
We'll have to figure that out.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and we're going to look over here at the staff to do that.
Well, if it's the boards, that would be the liaisons.
Yeah, got it.
I've got a problem with that. What I'm going to do is take the minutes and hand them out and say, here it is, guys. The other question I have is the quarterly updates from departments. And so the library is going to come in with a report of what? How many patrons? There's no format for any of these reports.
We get that anyway.
Correct. And if there are issues, I think we have an opportunity when we see those reports to bring them up and talk about it, as opposed to at some council meeting. I guess we'll get them all at once, or at some point we'll spend a lot of time talking about stuff that's we get to see monthly and review.
We get Danny's reports every.
Yeah, we get reports and have opportunities. But the last point I guess I'll make is it sounds like you, and some others of us do too, would like to see the CIP updated, but I'm not sure we need to hear about everything else on a quarterly basis. And a lot of that's minutia. So thanks for listening.
Well, again, I take feedback from my citizens, and I get all these questions on what's going on. Like, we have a line going in on Highland Lake Drive now. Big hole in the street, Instead of answering individually why we have a big hole in the street and heavy equipment is set there parked day in, day out, people are having to drive around it and stuff like that. I think during our council meetings, we need to be telling people, okay, our street department is working on this. This is what's gonna be happening. This is your expected completion date. Why do we have
They could be on the website.
cones? It could, but it's not, so.
But that's a fix. I think what you're suggesting, Mayor, is that for capital improvements, unless I'm missing something, there ought to be some additional information on the webpage for people to read about capital improvements. They don't need to know how many people went to the library in the last 3 months.
No, and I do that on my webcast, things
Right.
like that. The weekly reports and the things like that, I do that, but.
And Mayor, the monthly reports are on the website. So if you're looking for development services, golf course, court, police, library, these are website items. Just so people listening at home know, again, they can pull this up and look at the information. And then the financial reports, the monthly financial reports are also on the website. So maybe we just need to look at how do we disseminate that information and make sure people understand what we're getting in and getting out. So.
Okay. That is all I have.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything for future meetings? And our calendar, I don't have the updated one with me, so these other dates, August 2, 6, 16, all these dates are,
Yeah, but we'll confirm those when we deliver the budget. So with council, we'll confirm them. We'll make sure the advertising's out there, and we'll make sure to put that out on online and disseminate information so people know we're talking about our budgets.
because we're looking at one potential special call meeting at the end of July. So we need to make sure we know whether we're going to have any others in August or September, or to meet all these deadlines and hearings, or if we can. Like I see September 6th, September 13th, special meeting, September 20. All right, so, because I only see one on here right now. Just want to make sure that we've got everything covered, calendar-wise.
We'll have you covered.
All right. What? I'm making faces over there. Where are we at?
Delphine.
Executive session. Oh, it's time to go into executive session. Does anybody have anything to go into executive session with? No. All right. At, time is it 9:05 PM. Call this meeting adjourned. And and Lacey stuck around for the whole thing. I know. Can you believe it? No. She could have gone and ate somewhere, gone down to the lake and.
Lacey,